Hey, episode 61. We've got the amazing April Juliano. April, I am so happy to see you. I'm so glad you're on here. Like I was talking about beforehand, like you're one of the people I've heard so much about in Sub 2, but I haven't had nearly enough conversations with. So I'm just really excited to have you on. This is going to
Well,
be
thank you
great.
so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited to hear your story and all that. So for the for the 0 people who don't know who you are, who are going to be on here, just quickly go through like your business so far, what you're doing, just a little bit of like a recap of just what you're doing in real estate investing.
Okay, so I started with wholesaling and I'm still doing wholesaling. So I started a wholesale business 3 years ago. I've been doing that for 3 years. About 2.5 years ago, 6 months into this, I decided to take on my first flip, which was actually a novation agreement. So that
Nice.
started my flip career. And since then, I've done over 20 flips. Yeah, pretty cool. And then, I'm just always looking for good deals to buy and hold. I have 5 long-term rentals, and now I have 5 Airbnbs. And I'm looking for more.
I love it. Awesome. So which is better, wholesaling or flipping?
Well, I definitely like flipping better. I would say
Okay.
that this market makes it a little bit more challenging, but I still like it the best. But I also feel like you need wholesaling to get the really good deals. So you kind of
Right.
go hand in hand.
Goes hand in hand. I get
To
it.
me, it does. I know there's people out there that don't wholesale and they flip, but I feel like you get the really good deals if you're the wholesaler and you get to buy your own deals from yourself.
True. Very, very, very true.
Yeah.
So this is the question I always started off with, and it's basically when you were starting out, when you were just starting wholesaling, what were your greatest fears preventing you from going in? Like, what was holding you back based on where you were when you were starting in real estate?
Yeah. So I think for me, I really had no choice at the time. It was like, this is
Mhm.
something that I had to do. And so as I didn't know what I was doing. And so I think that was the scariest thing for me, is just kind of the unknown. And I also needed it to work at the time. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take the action and learn as I go. And, I know a lot of people are like me, like they're scared because they have no flipping idea what they're doing in real estate. And that was me too. But I also am the type of person that I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to learn as I go and do the best that I can and
I
see what
love it.
happens.
I love it. Awesome. So going into it, when you say you didn't have a choice, like go in, like tell us a little bit about what you mean. Why did you not have a choice? Like,
Well,
because I know people who like, people sometimes put themselves in situations. For me, it was kind of like, it's this, or I become an insurance salesman, which I'd rather kill myself
right.
over. What was it for you?
So we had actually come to a place where we had this whole thing that happened. We had a real estate deal that we were working on in New Jersey, and the whole thing fell apart. And it was
Mhm.
a commercial side. So my husband was in commercial real estate. And when that all fell apart, we were like, okay, what are we going to do now? And so he actually started selling windows, which is like the worst job on the face of the planet, selling windows. And I was actually pregnant with my 3rd child, and we're about to have our 3rd baby, and we're just like freaking out. What are we going to do to,
Right.
to make ends meet? Like, we just have no idea. Now, I had a career in finance. And so I thought, all right, I'm just going to start looking for a job. So I started looking for a job. And funny thing is, I actually got hired by a big wholesale company here in Jacksonville. And as I was
Interesting.
researching what the company was all about, because I had no idea about wholesaling houses, I was like, this is interesting. I think maybe I could do this myself instead of working for someone else. And so to me, it was the only option. Like, I just did not, I actually went to the interview, I got hired, and I would have had to drive an hour every morning to get there and an hour every night to get home. And with little kids, I'm like, this is just not going to work. But I think that I can actually do this on my own.
Love it.
So my husband had stopped selling windows because COVID hit. And then we were like, okay, what are we going to do? So I said, we're going to do this. We have no choice. We're going to run out of money in the next couple months. So we better make this work or we're screwed.
Right. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. So then why was it like attractive to you though? Because like you said, you have that background in finance.
Yeah.
I feel like most people, if they have a background in finance, you can make a lot of money in finance, right?
Yeah,
So yeah. And I bet, yeah, exactly. So then why did you feel the need of like doing wholesaling or getting into real estate?
Yeah, I just have always had this dream of owning my own business. And, working in finance, I was still working for someone else, and it was always answering to someone else. And I made a lot of money and I really liked the job that I did, but I just couldn't stand corporate America. And I was miserable, and so I'd always had this dream of working for myself for several years. I had been like talking to business brokers and just looking for the perfect business that I could have on my own. And when I found this, I thought, gosh, like you can turn this into like an actual huge business. And this is something that I think that I would really enjoy because I love real estate.
Right.
I had never been in it, but my husband having been in it, he kind of was like drawing me in and we were very interested. So I thought, this is something that I could really get on board with. And I think that I could build this business.
Love it. Awesome. Cool. Was that something you've had ever since you were like a little kid type of thing? Like where does the entrepreneurial spirit come from? Some people I feel like are born with it. Some people I feel like are kind of developed. What was it for you?
Yeah. Well, I did buy a restaurant with my mom and my sisters in my 20s. And we built up a very successful restaurant. It's actually still there. It's maybe 12 or 13 years old now. It's very successful. And so I loved doing that. And you just kind of got a taste, for having my own business. Like, oh, okay, so we can actually like buy a restaurant and run this thing ourselves. And we were our own bosses. And so I kind of got my first taste of entrepreneurship in the restaurant business. And I absolutely love the restaurant business. But the problem is you can't really make all that much money, unless you're a bar, which we didn't have a bar. So needless to say, it's just a grind, and you're working long hours and you're working at night. And so it really wasn't conducive for me. Like once I had my first child, my son, I was leaving him at, 4 p.m. and I wouldn't get home until like 11 p.m. at night. And I just did not want to be doing that. And so I ended up selling my portion of the restaurant back to my family. And now, I was going to be a mom for a little while. And then while I was a mom, I'm like, but I really want something of my own. And so I just kind of went on the search.
Gotcha. Okay. And then how is it being an entrepreneur and a parent? I feel like that must be impossible. I don't understand how anyone does it. I'm single and 27 and feel like, okay, I understand how I could be working 12 hours a day or 15 hours a day. I don't understand how like you and Pace and other people with children do it. Like there's a whole nother life there too. So talk about that. How do you deal with that?
I think for a long time, I felt like a failure at all of it. I can't give my 100% over here and I can't give my 100% over here. And I think that is probably, whether you're a parent or not, you could feel like, well, I'm failing at, being a son, or I'm failing at this because I'm throwing all my energy into my work and into my business. But really, that's not true. Like you're not defined by your roles. And so I think the biggest thing for me is keeping that mindset of like, I'm not defined by my roles. I'm not defined by being a mother. I'm not defined by being an entrepreneur. I do those things, but outside of those things, I'm loving, I'm compassionate, I'm strong, I'm steady, and I'm kind. And I can take those things into those roles, and I can make sure that I'm giving the best of me when I'm supposed, when I can. So, I have my time that's set aside for my kids, and my kids also know that I work, and I work from home. So it's great, because right now they're in bed, but if this was at, 4 p.m. my time on the East Coast, they might come in here and they might be like, hey, Mom, and just be like, hey, I'm working, you guys, I'll talk to you in a little bit. And they just know. And I even see my daughters, they pretend like they're working. They'll be like, this is my work and I'm working.
Cute.
So, you're emulating, hard work, and they know that they're the most important thing to me no matter what. And I think that that's the best way to juggle it, but it's not perfect. It's definitely hard.
Yeah, I get it. So when you were talking about earlier about like the feelings of like failure, about being like not 100% here, not 100% here, was it more just realizing that you can't be 100% everywhere always type of thing?
Yeah, because you're in this business, so you get to this point where it's you have this mentality where it's like you have to work, 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 right? And so it is, like you said, 12, sometimes 15 hours a day. It's weekends, it's all the time, and I love it. Like there's no point that I don't love it. But if I did not have kids, like it would be all the time, right? And so also I used to be a stay-at-home mom, and now I'm working, which I love working, and I will always work. I was only a stay-at-home mom for a little while. And, so then you're like, okay, now I'm not giving 100% of my time to my kids. So I just always had this thought that like, oh, you're supposed to be giving 100% of your time to your kids if you're a mom. But that's actually not true. If you are giving your attention and your love and your compassion to your kids, and you're giving them yourself, right? Like they can also see and watch you work and build a business. And that instills in them too, that they can grow up and they can also pursue their dreams and have kids. They can do it all,
I love it. Awesome. Cool. So getting back to your story a little bit, we had you're just starting wholesaling, you're trying to do it on your own. What happens?
So I decided that my marketing channel was going to be cold calling. And so I went and pulled this big list, like 10,000 names from ListSource. I had joined a mentorship, and so I had access to ListSource, and skip traced like half of them and loaded them into Mojo Dialer and went out to my garage. Because at this point, my youngest daughter was like 3 months old, and I had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And so I went out to my garage because it's Florida, so it's nice here, and garages are great, and just cold called for 5 hours a day every single. Yeah.
I love it.
And I did that for 4 months before I got my first deal. It was brutal. It was brutal. And also, I always tell people I would never take that back. It built up a resilience inside of me. And, I am proof right here that no matter what, that as long as you're consistent and persistent, it will work. Because, once I got my first deal, I went on that year to get over 40 deals.
Ooh.
And I believe it's because of those first 4 months of the brutality of cold calling.
Right.
For hours, 25 to 30 hours a week.
Damn. Love it. That's amazing. So then, so do you think that's how you think people should start? Just like freaking cold call, just
No.
you and a dialer and a computer screen, and that's all you should do because you're
Yeah.
going to get that resilience.
No, I do not. And not at all. In fact, I think that that's exactly the opposite of what you should do.
Wait, why? You just said you were so grateful for it.
Well, I think I didn't really know better at the time. And also I was, it was COVID. And so it wasn't like I was going to go door knocking or anything like that. And I really didn't have a lot of money. So I wasn't going to do texting or mailing. And so honestly, it really was a great way for me to start at the time. Is the question like, what would you do if you were starting today? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Like what would you tell a newer person? Because like you just said that cold calling for 5 hours a day really developed you.
It did. And if you don't have the money to hire a VA, I mean, shoot, go ahead and do it. But now I think it's a little bit different. We're kind of in a little bit of a different market. And, like I told you before, in our private chat before we started this, that I just did a seminar on, how to get into real estate. And I think the two best ways to start getting into real estate that are cheap, basically free, is agent outreach and door knocking. I think you're going to get deals way faster that way. Those are your low hanging fruit. And because if you're looking for a deal within the first 90 days, I think that those are the two that are going to get you a deal the fastest.
April, I'm mainly agent outreach. I don't know if you know that or not.
That's
like literally all I do. I did it before it was cool. Yeah. I'm just saying I did it before I was cool because now it's like the cool thing to do.
Yeah. Now
it's like what everybody's doing it. Mm-hmm. Anyways. Okay. So door knocking will still, agents will build some resiliency for sure, but door knocking will really build some resiliency. My story. If you
want a deal in 30 days, go out and knock 100 doors a week. And I promise you'll get a deal in 30 days. Like it's the fastest way to get a deal. It's just most people don't have the resiliency to do it.
Interesting. Okay. Why do you think it's the fastest way?
Because you're going to go out there and you're going to be face to face with people and they'll do deals with you. Like if you are on the phone with someone and you can set an appointment with him, you can go out and see him, you're going to get the deal. People are more likely to do deals with someone that they see face to face.
Right.
And a lot of times, some of these door knocking deals are deals that maybe some people haven't been able to reach either. Maybe they haven't gotten the cold calls or they haven't gotten the texts, but here you are knocking on their door. Or they have gotten all of those, but here you are showing up at their door and looking them in the eyes, and they're going to want to do business with you.
Right. Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it so much. So you don't recommend cold calling because of the effectiveness of it. Is really you think
it takes longer. I cold call still. Not me. I have VAs. I still like cold calling. I still think it's effective. I don't text. I do cold calling and mailers, and we do agent outreach, and those are kind of like the three primaries that we do. And we do have door knocking teams that will go out. We'll do door knocking with new people. I don't have I want to build out like a whole door knocking thing, but we haven't done that yet. But yeah, I think cold calling is great. I just think that it does take longer. And so if you have a W-2 and you're working a 9-to-5 job and you don't have time to go door knocking or do agent outreach, hire a VA and have them cold call for you. And it might take a little bit longer, but maybe you have a little bit longer. I don't think it really matters how long it takes you to start your real estate business, whether it's 6 months or 2 years or 3 years. As long as you stick with it, you will grow for sure.
Yeah, I 100% say you got to work on your business. I usually say at least 3 hours a day. I feel like 3 or 4 hours a day is like the tipping point where like it's 3 months versus a year. I don't know why. I think that's just something I've noticed. I don't know. What do you think is like the minimum somebody can work?
Yeah.
A day on their business?
When I told you about my seminar, the one thing that I was talking about was, okay, so if this is going to be your side hustle, right? So when you have a side hustle or when you have a part-time job, How many hours a week do you work at a part-time job?
Usually 4
Well,
or
10 to
maybe 2.
20. 20 is
Right.
part-time, right? 40 is full-time. So I'm just thinking in terms of like, if you're going to go to work at McDonald's, right? And you're working 40 hours a week, that's full-time. Or if you're a nurse or if you're a cop, 40 hours. But if you're part-time, that's 10 to 20 hours a week, right? So you also have, like, you have to think like, this is going to be my part-time gig for a little while. So you need to put at least, I think, 10 to 20 hours a week into it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it is going to take you longer.
Right. No, it makes sense. I mean, you're competing against people like you and me who are doing this like 12 hours a day or
Right.
like even more so, right? So
Right.
it's going to be harder, but you will 100% be able to do it. So, okay, April, tell me like your like business struggles. So like you were cold calling for 4 months, and then what did you do? What changed like to where you changed your business, or like what made you be like, you know what, maybe this isn't the right thing to do anymore? Exactly.
Well, I wouldn't say that so I didn't stop cold calling. Then I just hired a VA to do the
Okay.
cold calling. And then I started then I started texting. So my VAs were texting and cold calling. And then I started doing some other things like JVing. I started building up my social media presence. So now that like all my time wasn't being taken up, like, because cold call, like generating leads like that, like cold leads and turning them into warm leads takes a lot of time, right? And so now
Yeah.
I have that big chunk of time, and now I'm going to fill that time. I also, around the third month, I joined Pace's mentorship and I started learning about
Nice.
creative finance. And my very first deal actually was a creative finance deal. It was a sub two
Wow.
flip that I assigned to another investor, and they took over the loan sub two and they flipped it. And then, I think at the end of the year when I looked at my deals, I did more wholesales than I did creative, but it's really cool that my first deal was a creative deal. And so that kind of like catapulted me into, I had been watching Pace, I got that deal, and then I was like, oh, I'm in the mentorship. And the mentorship really, changed my
So
life.
wait a minute. The month 3, you were with Pace?
Around the end of month 3, I started watching Pace and I got my first creative deal, and then I joined the mentorship.
Wow. So you did it
I can't
without
remember.
joining the
Let's see, I
mentorship.
joined in March, April, May, June. So I joined at the end of June. So it was almost my 4th month that I joined.
How do you figure out how to make a creative deal work or get the paperwork right when you aren't part of like a mentorship
Yeah.
like sub 2?
So what I did, I was sitting in the living room. It was a husband and wife. It was the mother's house. They were moving the mother in with them. And it was one of these things where they were going to have to come to the closing table with maybe $5,000 or $6,000, which to them, they didn't want to do that, but they were just kind of looking for the person that maybe they could only have to come with $3,000, or maybe they only had to come
Right.
with $4,000. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but I had heard Pace enough to say, well, what if I took over your mortgage payments and, the mortgage would stay on the house and would stay in your name, and we would flip this. And when we flipped it, we'd pay it off. And and I said, and I would pay you $1,000. And they were just like, what? Not only were they not going to have to pay $5,000 or $6,000, I was going to pay them $1,000. They were just blown away. They loved me. No idea what I was doing. I was like, listen, I need to go back and, figure out the paperwork for all this. And, let's meet again, in 2 days, tomorrow or whatever. I can't remember exactly. But all I did was I went back. I found, Pace's creative free Facebook page, or maybe it was already on there. I don't remember. And I just asked for help. And somebody here in Jacksonville was like, hey, I have a contract for you. He sent me a sub 2 contract. He's like, and actually I have a buyer for you, and he was really sweet. And he's like, I know this isn't going to be like a huge assignment. I think it was maybe like a $3,000 assignment.
Right.
He's like, so just throw me $500. And I was like, yeah. And that $2,500 felt like $1 million.
Right.
It's like that first one. So
talk about that for a second.
It was right after that I can't remember I know like we were still trying to build up the money, but I remember we called several times and we joined right there at the beginning. So I think Pace started in May and I think we joined at the end of June or beginning of
I love
July,
it.
something like
Love
that. I
it.
don't know.
Yeah.
It's all
Talk
hard.
about the feeling of your first deal. Cause I love talking about this because to me that my first deal was a spiritual experience. Like I remember I was almost in tears when that happened. So I don't know
Yeah.
what it was like for you, but talk about it real quick.
Well, I mean, we were, like I said, in financial dire straits. And so that $2,500, I mean, it might as well have been $1 million
Right.
because that's how bad, we needed it. But I also am kind of the type of person that as soon as it's done, I'm ready for the next one. And I'm always so excited for closing. And then it just feels like closing. I'm just like, okay, when's the next one? So I just
Right.
am always like, okay, when's the next one? When's the next one? And I'd actually
Mm.
already had two more in the pipeline. And so as soon as I closed on that one, I was like already on to the other ones.
No, I love it. Okay, wait, when you say in the pipeline, like assigned with a buyer's EMD type of thing? Or like a
Well,
background?
I don't, so the second one was a wholesale deal. So what's funny is I found my very first two deals, not from cold calling, but from Facebook. They
Oh,
were
nice.
homeowners that posted. And so at night when I was watching Pace and watching wholesale videos, I was just scrolling Facebook and Zillow for sale by owner and, trying to network on Facebook and just find out like buyers and who some of the players were. I just was really digging in deep because, it's COVID. And so it's not like there's real estate meetups right now or right then. And so your networking was really on Facebook and on
Right.
Instagram. So I found my first two deals on Facebook. So I had closed that one and I had also gotten this other Facebook deal under contract. And so I had not sold it yet, but when I was done, when I had sold that one, I was like, okay, now I got to go find a buyer for this one.
Right. Gotcha. So you were just on to the next one. I
Yeah.
love it. That's
Yeah.
cool. So amazing. So you get the bug a little bit, you get the proof of concept. What I love about your story is you also didn't slow down at all. You didn't take a beat. You weren't like, all right, $2,500. Let's go take a vacation, honey. Like it was none of that type of stuff. It was like, hey, let's like keep going. And I just want to say I love that. That's good
Yeah.
because a lot of
It's
wholesalers, you're
like
not a
a
wholesaler,
taste of
you're a
the
risk.
blood, the shark's blood.
Yeah, exactly. But you kept going with it. This is something I've been experimenting with too, and I need to be paying attention more to the chat. So I'm gonna throw this in there. I mean, we kind of went over this about like what advice you can give having 4 kids. Like, do you do time blocking?
Yeah.
Like, what's your schedule?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my husband is awesome. He runs all of our flips and manages, some of our rentals, not all of our rentals. We do have property managers, but there's a couple that we run. Or if we get a new property, and he's got to do the renovations. And so he has a lot more time. And so he's able to like pick the kids up from school and all of that. But for me, I work until around 4:30-ish. And then at 4:30, I just kind of sign off. And I want to say that I completely check out of my phone, but I usually don't.
Right.
That's the goal. It's just that's really hard because,
Mhm.
there's deals going and I can't miss out. But try to check out around 4:30. Kids are home at 3:30. So I check out at 4:30 and I make dinner and we hang out. And then I put my kids to bed at 7 p.m. Now they are little, and so that is easy for me. I put them to bed at 7. And then after that, I might have other things that I need to do. And so I will go back and get on my computer or, like we're doing this podcast. This is perfect. My kids are in bed. So whatever I need to do, I will do after they go to bed. So I try to keep that like 4:30 to 7 range. And really that's what, 2.5 hours. It's not even that much. And then in the mornings, I wake up really early. I wake up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock. I do work out in the mornings before they're awake. And then once they're awake, then I spend time with them before school and they leave for school at 7:30 a.m. And then I'm usually off to the races about then with work. So I work from like 7:30 to 4:30.
Damn, I love it.
And then, on the weekends, I really try on Saturdays. I know a lot of people work on Saturdays, but I actually like to work on Sundays because I feel like it sets me up for the week. So I really try to kind of like check out on Saturdays and just hang out with my kids, and we go and we'll do something. We'll go to the park or we'll go on an adventure and we hang out. And then Sunday I will start getting back to work again, and everybody's just chilling out at the house, and I'll get on my computer and do stuff and not worried about it. So it is hard. It's definitely hard.
I love it though. That's like pretty amazing, like good time management there. How do you to me, to put kids, I'm not a parent, but I would have never gone to bed at 7. I don't feel like any age I would have gone to bed at 7:00. So like, are they actually sleeping? Like, did you drug them? What do you do?
Put them to bed. I mean, if they're not tired at 7, that's fine, but they got to be quiet. And they got to lay there. But, they're 7, 5, and 3. I know this isn't going to work when they're 10, 8, and 6, So we'll have to readjust as time goes. And I don't know what that looks like, but I know what it looks like for me now. And it works for me now. But people are always like, your kids go to bed at 7. Oh my gosh. I'm like, come on. They're kids. They
I really like it.